Hi there, this is Bobby with an update on my 78 Chevy K10 Scottsdale. Just recently put in the ORD Shackle flip kit in the rear, off-road design. It has the stock springs and then used the 4-inch shackle flip kit on it. I also at the same time used the zero rate stuff that they sell. It has the 1-inch or the 1.5-inch option to center up your axle. After reading some things, I didn't know for sure exactly how far forward or backward it would move, so I went ahead and went with the 1.5 inch option on that zero rate, and everything looks like it's centered up real good on this truck. I didn't really measure it, but it looks like it's pretty centered. So I think that's a real solid approach, is to use those whenever you buy, if you choose to buy this kit. So that's what the shackle flip looks like, and I went ahead and bought their heavy-duty shackles, and I decided to put the shock brace on that, because they talk about the frame cracking when it's getting flexed and on these old trucks. So I went ahead and put that on also, and I put some new shocks on. I didn't know how old these shocks were when I bought the truck, so I just replaced those at the same time. And I'd already had their leaf spring top plate there for your U-bolts. I had those. Those are pretty cool because they have a little slot on the front, which is important whenever you're using those zero rates, because it moves your axle backwards, and so it's got that little slot on the top. Those are super solid. The reason I bought those originally was because I over torqued the stock bolts. That whenever I was putting this axle in, it was a salvage axle and it had the stock plate on it, and I apparently over torqued it and bent that plate. But I don't see that as an issue with these. These are super heavy duty. So everything that ORD put out on this stuff seems really top notch. And there's that zero rate block. It's a 1-inch block. Like I said, it has the 1-inch and the 1.5 inch. It's super easy to put together. You just, all the hardware, just, you're not gonna have any problems with it at all. On this thing here, probably the hardest thing about the whole project, it's very time consuming, is on that old hanger that they have. You got to knock those rivets off the heads, and it's very time consuming. I had just a cutting wheel and a little grinding wheel, and there's 6 on each side, so you got the 4 and then the 2 on the bottom. But felt like hours and hours and hours of grinding those things off and finally punching them through. So that's not the fun part of the job, so I don't want to have to do that anytime again. But you get them done. And what I did with those is, once I ground the heads off, I took a pry bar, come up underneath and yanked on it, and it popped it loose, and then you just have to work those rivet shafts back through. So that's good. I took this thing out for a ride with the way these stock springs sit with that shackle flip kit, and I felt like, and maybe the new shocks are helpful too, but I felt like, wow, this is it's a big improvement over the ride that I had. It felt a lot less bumpy and harsh, so I can speak to that. At the same time, I did my project, I decided to do some work on this 12-bolt axle that I have. Originally, I thought I'd go ahead and get the 1-ton axles, the Dana 60 up front, the 14-bolt in the back. But after some consideration, I just decided to go with just reworking the 12-bolt. So what I did was I bought some used gears. The gears that are inside this thing are 307s, and so I bought some 411s, because these are 33-inch tires. They're not giant or anything, but so I bought the 411 gears, and I also bought a Spartan locker while I was at it. I decided I'm going to put a Spartan in the front and the rear. So pulled the carrier out. You had to change carriers on these when you go from a 307 to a 411, and found some used gears and stuff, and so put it on the bench and put the new ring gear on there. Had to, put it back together and get it all, use your tools to get it all measured out right. But I tell you this, probably the hardest thing about the whole project, and I would call it difficult, it was getting the right torque on the pinion nut. The pinion that, that runs forward there out of the yoke. There's a nut on there. I watched a video where a guy was using some tools, like a couple of big breaker bars and a torque wrench, and also using a specific tool, which I'll show you. Use one of these babies, and that, you can see, that's the biggest, I believe that's a 1/2 inch there. It just didn't work. I mean, it was just too much torque for this thing to handle. This thing would be good for tightening stuff up. What you do is you put this on your yoke, and you use your little U-bolt studs and tighten it down, and then you use that. But if you're putting it back together on something that's already got a crushed sleeve, that's already been properly torqued, it'd work fine. But if you're crushing a new sleeve, I wouldn't waste your time with something like this. What I ended up having to do on that is take I would say at least a 3-foot long pipe wrench and put it on that yoke there, and then we had another huge torque wrench. It probably was 3 to 4 foot long. We used that, and then a couple of pipes, and actually one pipe for the pipe wrench side of it. But it had to have been between 400 and 500 pounds to get that thing tightened. And the way this thing really works, if you haven't done this before, and this was my first time, and I appreciate all the videos that I saw on it, was you tighten that yoke up until you get all the slop out of it, and then when you check the rotational torque on it, it's not going to have any drag on it at first. Then you keep tightening and keep tightening. It does that crush sleeve. And I know a lot of folks go away from the crush sleeve. They got the, I don't know what it is, but it's there's another kit out there that you can buy that does away with the crush sleeve, but that's what I had, so I used it. But when you get to the point where you get the slop out of that yoke, that's when you got to slow everything down, and you just got to go like a 1/4 inch turn, then check it, a 1/4 inch turn, then check it, and just keep doing that and take your time, because you will over torque this thing really quick if you're not careful. And because it's like it goes from 0 to whatever pretty quick. So that's what I did, and I ended up a little bit high. I think I was in the 25 inch-pounds on the rotational torque, and from what I can tell, the specs are pretty much in between 15 and 20 on the truck, but it seemed to work out okay. I mean, it's 25 inch-pounds, but that's what I did. And I suggest you get you one of these little things, $10 tools. One place that I can find one of these old school inch-pound torque wrenches is at AutoZone. So that's what I used. And like I said, it worked out okay. A couple other things. I got some tools here I thought I'd let you just if you're gonna prepare for a project like this, let you know about. When you redo your axle, you take your axle apart, it's a good idea to change out your axle seals, the bearings on the outside. And you absolutely need one of these babies right here. Goes on the end of one of those slide hammers. A lot of the slide hammer kits don't come with this attachment. One that I had this hook on it, just like one side there, it just had a hook. That's a complete waste of time. You got to get something like this that'll grab both sides. Once you get that in there and then start yanking on it, it comes out about 30 seconds. So no problem at all. But otherwise, you're just kind of wasting your time. Also, if like I'm sure anybody who has redone a differential and redone the gears there, you need one of these dial indicators. I can't remember the actual brand on this, but It was about a $40, $50 kit that I got on Amazon, but this has got a great magnetic base on it. I saw some reviews on some others where it said the magnetic base wasn't any good, but this thing right here is, that thing ain't going anywhere once you get it on there. That's what the face looks like. But this is a good tool right here. And then of course you need your dial caliper, which this is the one I found, and it's a good one. It works perfectly. And then when you're checking the angle of your pinion, which by the way, checking the angle of your pinion on my truck, even though this is a long bed, it seemed like it worked out perfect. You know, it was definitely within 2 degrees on it, it seems. And I took it out and I had the thing up to over 2,500 RPMs with those gears in there. Probably, I'm guessing 60 to 70 miles an hour, and I didn't feel anything, any vibrations or anything. It felt smooth. So I think I'm where I need to be. I don't think I need to shim anything based on what I saw. So yeah. I don't know what else to say about it other than it turned out good, and I'm really happy with the ORD products. They've done me right every step of the way, so that's all I have for now.